Hello and welcome, dear friends, at Lit eCity YouTube channel, the one-stop destination for English literature, and once again in an important quiz time session where we will deal with some questions you may actually find in the upcoming paper, because these are designed keeping in mind previous year papers, the topics and writers and the pattern with which generally the NET paper is designed. Dear friends, in our present session, we will tackle unit 7th and 9th, both these units, which basically are literary theory and cultural studies. We know that these two units are basically proved to be difficult for especially for the young students, and my aim in this particular video is once again is not for just NET but also the advanced level and for JRF. So keeping in that mind, I have also raised the standard of the question. Here is our first question. Materialist feminism argues material conditions of all sorts play a vital role in the social production of gender. Now, who is generally credited with coining the term? Dear friends, feminism, which become a prominent theory, social theory after 1960s, took diverse forms. There is liberal feminism, radical feminism, then Marxist or materialist feminism. Materialist feminism is closely related with Marxist philosophy. So you have to tell who has given coined this particular term. Was it Kristen Delphi, Monique Wittig, Juliet Michel, or Michelle Barrett? Now, before coming to the answer, let me make it clear that all these four are associated with materialist feminism. They have written works which have highlighted the role of economics, the role of social politics and this kind of production and other material conditions, which also decide the role of women play in the society. If we talk about the correct answer is Christian Delphi. She is generally credited with giving this term. But let me side by side tell you that there are two very important texts associated with materialist feminism. One is Juliet Michel's Women, the Longest Revolution. You may definitely it may definitely come into your mind, The Longest Revolution, another path-breaking book by another Marxist critic. Michelle Barrett's Women's Operation Today. These two books deal with materialist feminism. Okay, coming to our next question, Only Connect. Forrester's famous motto from his novel Howard's End is also the name of the BBC lectures delivered by this eminent critic in 1971. Who is this critic? Our options are Richard Hoggart, second is Stuart Hall, third one is E.M. Forrester himself, and the last option is F.R. Lewis. Now, friends, Only Connect, as we know that it was not only in this novel, Howard's End, but Forrester has worked on this philosophy in many other novels like Passage to India also. But this particular person, in his series of lectures, talked about communication in general people, among common people, and these particular lectures were given at in 1971 and later published by this title Only Connect. He is none other than Richard Hoggart, and when they were published, the complete title was Only Connect on Culture and Communication. The next question is, which term is used by Jurgen Habermas, to the German sociologist, to refer to the capacity to engage in argumentation with the aim of achieving consensus? Now, Habermas has worked a lot on social form of consensus, the basic principle of democracy. and he has reached on some conclusion. While let's first look at the options: strategic rationality, instrumental rationality, communicative rationality, and discourse rationality. In fact, he has discriminate between two types, or we can say rather in three types of rationality people follow while making an argument. Out of these four, discourse rationality is not one he has talked about or written about. He has written about strategic rationality and instrumental and communicative rationality. Now, out of these, it is actually communicative rationality, which is designed to get consensus, while strategic rationality is more about ability to perform tasks, ability to take actions. Communicative rationality is different because it is about creating consensus among the public for particular thing. You can see it in the many actions of government when they want to introduce some particular bill which they suppose will create a sort of uneasiness among the public. They basically resort to this strategy. Social actions can either be success oriented, they want to implement, then it is strategic action, or understanding oriented, then it is about achieving consensus, then it is communicative action. The next question says, who is the writer of path-breaking essays like The Straight Mind, The Category of Sex, and One is Not Born a Woman? So all these essays, dear friends, belong to the queer theory or LGBTQ position in gender theory, and you can see that the straight mind, category of sex, and one is not born a woman. All these titles they basically rework the classical essays. For example, the straight mind is a reworking of the Strauss essays. The savage mind, one is not born a woman, obviously gives hint about one is born a woman, and these other kinds of things. So first option is Dale Spender, Monique Wittig, Lee Adelman, and Michael Warner. Out of these four, three are associated with gay lesbian studies or LGBTQ or queer studies. In fact, all of these four have written something on it. But if we talk about writer of these essays, it is the French critic Monique Wittig who has written these essays. Side by side, let us know about important works by Lee Adelman, that is Homography, Graphicis, Essays in Gay Literary and Cultural Theory, and Michael Warner's The Trouble with Normal. Both are considered to be important texts in queer theory. Our next question is, Jerome McGann's Radiant Textuality is a pioneer work in the field of. Our options are LGBTQ studies, disability studies, digital humanities, or neo-Marxist studies. Dear friend, radiant textuality is a quite recent phenomena, a new field of study, and Jerome McGann book is, we can say, one of the most important and earliest contribution in this field. The correct answer for this is digital humanities, as the title, complete title of the work is Radiant Textuality, Literature After the World Wide Web, and it demonstrates eloquently how new technologies like e-reading, e-books deepen our understanding of complex multi-layered works. Eve Sedgwick's 1986 essay, The Beast in the Closet, is a queer reading of a famous story by this American writer. First is Henry James, second is William Faulkner, third is Herman Melville, and the last is E.A. Poe. Now, Eve Sedgwick, who has written very important points or elaborated on the theory of homosexuality in English literature, she has also pointed out how this particular story is considered to be a heteronormative story, but actually has very clear implications of homosexuality. Dear friends, the correct answer is Henry James. Yes, it was his short story, The Beast in the Jungle, which is generally read as a heterosexual love story about John Marcher who cannot return the love of a woman. After the death of this particular woman, he feels, we can say, regret. But now Eve Sedgwick, she points out that the situation is so because Marcher is not a heterosexual but rather a homosexual person. What is Raymond Williams' term for the process by which one selects from the legacy of the past to explain, support, and justify actions in the present? So you can understand it is basically picking something from the past so that it can support your present argument or action. Structure of feeling, selective tradition, selective feeling, or structured tradition. Now, out of these four, only two are valid terms: structure of feeling and selective tradition. These two have been coined by Raymond Williams for almost similar methods. The correct answer is selective tradition, in which we select particular points from the tradition which are helpful, which corroborates to our present versions of truth. Reflexive modernization is a term for a society driven by judgments and actions which are supposedly scientific, apparently scientific or rational, but actually they are because of our instinctive reflexes. Who is credited with coining this term? First option is Ulrich Beck, second is Frederick Jameson, third is Stuart Hall, and the last one is Richard Rorty. All these persons, as you very well know, they have worked about modern and postmodern world. They have tried to understand the particular way the things have shaped itself and changed. Reflexive modernization is actually a book and concept given by Ulrich Beck. Once again, he is a German thinker, sociologist. And along with reflexive modernization, which he also calls second modernity, he coined the term risk society. By this term, he tries to elaborate the present world's way of dealing things with not about contemplating things, rather taking things just on reflexes. The next question is, Culture is Ordinary is one of the most popular essays by Raymond Williams. This is in part a critique of one of famous modernist critical works. Identify the work. The options are T.S. Eliot's Notes Towards the Definition of Culture, F.R. Lewis' New Bearings in English Poetry, Matthew Arnold's The Function of Criticism at the Present Time, and T.S. Eliot's The Idea of a Christian Society. Dear friends, in this particular essay, Culture is Ordinary, Raymond Williams is actually anti-elite. He wants to point out the problem with 20s and 30s philosophers and critics, that they were too elitist. But he says that culture is ordinary. And the particular work which he criticizes in a great deal in this particular essay is Eliot's Notes Towards the Definition of Culture, who claim that beneath the surface structure of a historical text, there is an emplotment derived from literary conventions that indicates what an appropriate historical explanation of a particular event might be. So, emplotment is borrowed from literary conventions and put into historical discourses. So, was it Haydon White, Jurgen Habermas, Clifford Keats, or Paul Connerton? Haydon White and Paul Connerton, they both are, we can say, historiographics. They deal with the basic study of history in the modern times. And Habermas and Keats have also contributed to the concept of interrelationship between history and literature. But emplotment is a term which is given by Haydon White in his very, very famous book, Meta History, the historical imagination in 19th century Europe. One of the key organs of the structuralist and post-structuralist movements in Paris was the journal Politique. Who among the following is not a founding member of it? First is Philippe Solers, Gerard Genet, Zvetan Todorov, and Helen Sigzu. They all four of them have been very important, instrumental in beginning two very important journals related with structuralism and post-structuralism. One of these is not related with Politique, and that person is Philip Solers, who was behind the famous, equally famous journal Tel Quel. Towards the decolonization of African literature is a stinging critique of some of the dominant trends in contemporary African literature. Who among the following is not one of the authors? Chinvizu, Onwuchekwa Zemi, Madiu Buick, or Wal Soinka. Now, one among these is actually, we can say there are these four. Three of them are on the one extreme of a particular thinking, and the other is on the other extreme. He basically rejected their claims, or we can say they rejected his claims, and that particular writer is Wale Soyinka, who basically was who were basically of the belief that it is very okay to use English, while these three, especially these three, Chinvizu, Onwuchekwa Zemi, and Madibuki, they all were nativist. They were staunch supporter of using native language, culture, and folk tales to create a national literature. The Haunting of Sylvia Plath is a postmodernist feminist interpretation of Sylvia Plath's work and criticism, and it is also criticism of her husband Ted Hughes. Who is the writer? Jacqueline Rose, Janet Malcolm, Laura Mulvey, or Carol Ann Duffy. Out of these four, three have worked on Plath, especially after her death, exploring the issues, the marital issues between Ted and Sylvia. But the writer of The Haunting of Sylvia Plath is Jacqueline Rose. By Janet Malcolm, she has written The Silent Women, Sylvia Plath and Ted Hughes. Similarly, Carol Ann Duffy has compiled and edited poetry of Sylvia Plath, giving her very, very deep interpretive understanding of the poetry. Who created the reading strategy tool DEFT? DEFT, Defense, Expectation, Fantasy, and Transformation, which views reading as an active process lived through during the relationship between a reader and a text. According to this reader response theory, there is a continuous change in the strategy. First, the reader actually expects something from the text, then he select, that is defense, then he put his own fantasy in the characters, that is fantasy, and then then the reader transforms the text according to his or her own version. So that is 4 stages of DEFT. Was it David Blake, Louise Rosenblatt, Julia Kristeva, or Norman Holland. Dear friend, I hope you know that it was Norman Holland who initiated psychoanalytic reader response theory by giving this model of depth, which term is coined by Alice Jordan to indicate the process by which the sign of women is put into postmodern discourse. Alice Jordan was very much concerned about the fact that post-structuralist theories like given by Derrida and Michel Foucault, they have redefined women. For example, madness, discussion of madness by Foucault, here madness has taken a feminine form. She basically wished to introduce something new so that a women perspective can be put into the postmodern or post-structuralist discourse. So she coined this term. Is it gynesis, gynosis, women process, or women in effect? Now, actually, term which Alice Jordan coined is gynesis. Okay, friends, that's all for today. You can anytime give me a personal message for the PDF of these videos, which I hope will prove helpful to you. And keep supporting and keep giving your inputs to make our videos more informative, more valuable for your precious time. Thank you, friends.